Excellent. Well, for our next speaker, I'd like to bring up Emily Tell. Emily has over 20 years of operational experience, including call center, project and change management, and managing a global tech stack and data strategy. She currently supports and works with small and medium-sized businesses across Canada with digital transformation, cybersecurity, data, and AI training and strategy. Welcome, Emily.
So I'm going to get you to interact a little bit more than you have, partially because everyone's got lunch in their bellies and those carbohydrates are hitting about now. So I'm going to be asking you some questions. I'm going to get you actually engaged, and I would love for you to participate. I don't need to introduce myself. You did a fantastic job. Thank you very much for that. So let's get started. Everyone knows that AI is critical. I think you've heard that over the last several hours, that it's really important for your business. It's something that is really no longer an option, right? It makes your business faster, more efficient. You can automate your tasks and processes. More time for innovation when you're not doing that mundane work, which also means more time for creation and strategy. It reduces time and cost. It gives you data for unique insights that your organization would never have had before. It also enhances employee engagement. I know there's a lot of things in the news about job loss around AI, but I can tell you AI is not just a technology implementation, it is a human implementation. And it's really important to get that part right, and we're going to talk about that today. And of course, it does give you a competitive edge. So they have seen data where they are 30x, so 30 times more productive as organizations, and it allows people to do things they never would have been able to do before because they didn't have the time or they didn't have the tools. So I think everybody understands AI is important. Can I get a show of hands if you think AI is changing the way you're going to do business? Yeah. Loud and clear today. But AI is also extremely disruptive. It is one of the most disruptive things that we have experienced in our lifetime. I'm going to date myself a little bit. I went to university and I thought I was super cool because my roommate had a typewriter that would type out a sentence. You could type it in and then the typewriter would type the whole sentence for you. I went from that to working in computers to now working in artificial intelligence, and there are millions of startups that are devoted to artificial intelligence. But again, if you only think about the technology, your AI implementation is going to fail. So 70 to 80% of AI implementations fail. And it's not because of the technology, it's because of the people part of it. You have to remember, at the end of the day, it's a person that is running those things, that are doing those processes, that is quality checking that AI. It's extremely disruptive. So the other thing we don't talk about when we talk about AI, because honestly, talking about the tech is really fun, really cool, right? We don't talk about this, that it's really scary, and that it's a fear-based thing. Another quick story. My grandmother was the first person in her village to have a car. Can you imagine, right? And at the time, there was a huge uproar. What was going to happen to all the people whose job it was to maintain horses, to shoe horses, to create horseshoes? What about the blacksmith in the village? So we went from that to where we are now, and as you can imagine, it generated a massive amount of fear. So I'm going to give you 3 steps that will help you to understand all of the things that we talked about today and actually implement them in your company. So not just the theory and all of the why, we're going to talk about the how for the next hour. And I use a 3-step model, really easy to remember, AAA, accept, align, and then act. So acceptance is easy to talk about, but you need to actually accept it. Show of hands, how many people have used AI in the room? Awesome. How many have built an agent? Okay, it's actually easy to do. You just have to look it up. You can even ask an AI how to do it. But not everyone is there yet. I talk to people all the time who said that they're terrified of it. They're terrified it's going to steal their data, their birthday, that the Terminator is going to come, right? And we need to get to a place where we as individuals and the individuals in our company accept reality. This is now here, this is the new normal. So you need to accept radically. So who here is ostrich in the sand? I just don't want to deal with this. It's too much, it's too overwhelming. Anybody there? Okay, you can self-reflect if you don't want to show your hands. Who there is the ostrich like, I'm ready. I know I'm ready for this change. Yeah, we got 2 people, 4 people ready. We'll get the rest of you there. 4 people are ready to make this change, which is great. The other thing that we don't talk about and why acceptance is so critical and getting past it, not just for you, but the people in your company is so critical, is because it is the risk that no one talks about. Fear is sometimes a taboo thing. You're not supposed to be afraid. You're not supposed to admit that you're afraid, right? You're supposed to white knuckle it through that roller coaster. But it's real, and it genuinely impacts you and your business and everyone in your company. It stalls innovation because people are afraid to take the next step, or they're afraid to challenge leadership, or they're afraid to challenge existing processes. It slows or it halts progress in your company completely. You will fall behind your competition if you don't start using some of the AI things and the automation as well that we heard about today. And that competency gap is going to continue to grow, right? If you can imagine a horse and a car leaving the same spot at the same time, who's going to reach the destination first? Horse or car? Anybody? Car. Yes, car is correct. So it continues to grow. The longer you wait, the larger that competency, skills, knowledge gap gets. It also is a shift in your company culture. So if it's a company that has a culture of fear, again, it's very difficult to get over that and move forward. And it changes your employee perception about what's okay to do and that innovation is important to the company. So fear is critical. We don't talk about it, but it's there, and I see it company after company after company that I work with. And it's not really change that's the hardest part, it's resistance. So people's resistance against change and not wanting to go outside of the norm. Adults are the worst at this. Adults hate asking for help. We hate admitting when we don't know something. We hate saying that we're not the expert in the room. So it's especially hard for adults to do this, to get past the resistance and move into change. So AI is here, and we need to get to a place where we radically accept that that is the truth, and then we move forward. I'm going to tell you a personal story about how I did this. And if anyone's having a hard time for yourselves, in your company, etc., this is a great way to get past fear. So fear is related to the amygdala. Does anybody know what an amygdala is? Got one guy? Anybody else? All right. They also call it the lizard brain. It's a part of your brain that's from the time of the dinosaurs. So if you had a velociraptor chasing you, just take a moment to ponder, what would you immediately go into? A state of fear, and then fight, flight, and also freeze. Those are the 3 variables of the amygdala. And that is all that it knows. When your amygdala turns on, when you are afraid, the amygdala actually activates and it dumps a ton of adrenaline into your system. It pulls all of the blood out of your brain and directs it to your exterior limbs so that you can run away faster. And then what that also does is it shuts off everything else in your brain, so you can no longer think logically. You can no longer behave logically. Has anyone had an argument? Spouse, neighbor, friend, yeah. Wow, everyone is like perfect relationships except that guy. Sorry for you. Right? Has anyone ever felt like when somebody's mad, they can't talk to you anymore? Like they're just I've had this conversation with my husband. You are incapable of understanding me right now. And the funny thing is, medically, scientifically, that's 100% accurate. So when all of that stuff, adrenaline pumps in, the amygdala turns on, you are physically incapable of logical thought and sometimes even speech. So you've got to move past fear and into acceptance and moving on. And the way to turn the amygdala off is to do a couple of things. You can think logically. So sometimes just saying, hey, let's talk about this in a different way, right? Or maybe come back to it later. Or joy, the opposite of fear. Hope, joy, laughter, that also shuts it off. So AI, I found AI scary, right? I grew up with the Terminator, so, and HAL, which is, an AI inside of space that destroyed an entire space station. Yeah, one person knows what I'm talking about. All right. So I actually decided to use it personally, not for my company, but I actually decided to use it for me personally to get past my own fear and to accept it into my life as something helpful for me. So it brought me hope, it brought me joy, and it helped me to think more logically. So I'm going to just tell you this quick story, because if you are struggling, or if anyone's struggling with using AI, sometimes just using it for yourself is the best start, and playing with it. Just go and play. So for me, my daughter has actually been in and out of hospitals for the last 2 years, and multiple doctor's appointments, multiple specialists, with no idea of a diagnosis. And I didn't know what to do. I was at my wit's end. And I actually turned to AI to help me. So I have a private version of Copilot, which is Microsoft's AI, and I started typing in all of her symptoms, all of her medications, and saying, what are the risks? What are the side effects? What are the really rare side effects? What are some questions I should be asking my doctor the next time we go in? And suddenly I didn't feel so isolated and alone. I felt like I had a companion that when I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, terrified, I could ask it a question. I could say, what should I ask my doctor about these medications? I'm experiencing these symptoms. How can we get past it? That allowed me, that one moment when I realized I was so helpless and so powerless, and there was nothing else for me to do but to accept where I was and move forward, I started to use AI to change my life. So it's not just about business. It does a lot of other really great things, but the first step is radically accepting where you are and that you need to make another step in the right direction. So radical acceptance is actually a psychological model. It's associated with cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's actually radically accepting. You decide, you choose, you understand there is no other decision than to accept and move forward. That's it. So in simple terms, as Monica Brooks says, it means this: you don't have to like it, or want it, or even approve of it, but you just simply stop fighting reality. And that's where we are with artificial intelligence. Well, we'll try the manual way. Let's try this. Okay. And of course, there's a lot of really good reasons to do that from a behavioral perspective. And this is all going to make sense, again, because we're not just talking about technology, we're talking about people. If you choose not to accept the truth, then you're on one of the other sides of the pendulum, or teeter-totter, as you see here. So if you avoid the truth, it actually leads to depression, anxiety, and again, continuation of fear. And on the other side, if you attack it, right, I don't want it, it leads to irritability, anger, and fear. So really, you want positive forward motion or positive action, right? All right, so now we've accepted AI is real, and we're going to move forward. And again, this is the people part of it, because we're the ones who have to accept that it's real, right? Not the AI. I can't say it knows it's real because it doesn't actually think, even though we like to talk about it that way. All right, so we've accepted it. Now what am I going to do about it? And I asked to speak to you today last because I want to tie together all of the things that we've been talking about today and talk about how are you going to implement those things. So the first thing is to align strategically. So I think everybody in the room probably knows what strategy is, but it's a plan of action to get you from current state to a desired future state, right? And AI cannot be just simply tactical. I call AI fries with that, because I've gone into a variety of companies and they say, oh yeah, we want to implement this and this, and oh, can you just put some AI in too? Just, fries with that, right? It doesn't work that way. I can't remember which speaker it was. I think it was Parker, who said, you can't just throw it in there. You have to have a business reason, a business outcome that you're trying to aim for. Same thing with another speaker earlier was talking about data. You have to think about what data are you going to use, right? So it can't just be an add-on. It has to be something that you really think about. So this is where we get into some of the models that I find are really useful and super easy to use. This is called the circle of control. Has anyone heard of it? No? Okay. So it is actually a Stoic model. So Stoicism, like way back in the time of the Greeks and the Romans, all right? But popularized by Stephen Covey, who's a renowned leadership visionary and coach. I've extended it a little bit, but the basics of it is this. Don't be overwhelmed by the everything of AI. You can't possibly implement the everything. So the circle of control says, in various different circles, you have variations of control. So you always have control over you, and then there's other things that you have control over. I used to have, some control over my daughters, and now they're teenagers, and I just don't. They're in an outer circle. They're off living their lives. So you think about, what do you and your company have direct control over? So that's going to include things like my data, the way that my organization is organized, the types of roles and responsibilities that I think are critical for us to move forward. I have direct control over those things, and I'm going to do them. You also want to think about capacity. So I might have control over my entire organization as a CEO, but maybe I don't have capacity, right? Maybe we've had a lot of attrition, maybe there's other things that are going on in the organization, maybe my workforce isn't ready for it. We just don't have capacity to do some of those things. Same thing with competency, right? So yes, we've got capacity and I've got control over it, but the people don't know how to use AI. The competencies just don't yet exist. I might not have the capital for it or budget. And also, I have control over the competition space that I'm currently working in, right? But I may not be able to expand into others yet. So you want to look at just that, keep it really simple to what is the circle of control. Beyond that is a circle of influence. So these are things I don't have control over, but I can influence. And the last one is the circle of concern. Those are things I don't have direct control or influence over. Like I can't, for example, control climate change personally. I can't just turn a switch on and off. There are things I can do to help it, right? I can't control the next model that OpenAI is going to release. I can't control metagenics, and I can't control the next robot that's going to be designed, but I can control my company. So you want to think about what do you have direct control over, and then also look at it through these other lenses. A thing that we heard a lot today was get your foundations right. So if you don't do anything else today, if you leave today and think, what can I do? These are some key things that you have direct control over that I see companies do wrong over and over and over and over again. You have to get your cybersecurity right. You have to protect your data and your assets. If you don't do anything else than that to prepare for AI, you're already ahead of many companies that I work with. So you have to get your security right. You have to protect your data, your people, your assets. Okay, data is the next thing, right? So protecting that data, but also making sure you have the right data, that it's clean, that it's well organized, because that is what AI uses. That is the food for AI. Without good, clean data, you've got an AI engine that can literally do nothing. It has nothing to work with. So you have to get good, clean data, you have to have it secure, and you have to have it accessible to your AI. That also means you have to have your infrastructure set up properly. You also need policies and processes, right? These are the guardrails, not just for your people, but also for the AI, right? What is the AI allowed to do? And also, what is it not allowed to do? Okay, we heard a story today about how Air Canada's chatbot said, sure, yeah, we're gonna refund your money. It needed a rule to say, that's not a thing, that's not real, we don't do that, right? So you need policies and clear processes for the guardrails for AI and your people to work within. And then of course you need the knowledge and skills to actually use that software. And this is an easy way to think about it. Why is it important to get your foundations right? So again, if you don't do anything else this year but get your foundations right so you can take off like a rocket, you're doing great work. You're ahead of a lot of companies that I work with. Because exponential growth, if you want to go straight up, you need a solid foundation to get there. Same way that when Elon Musk launches a rocket, does he launch it off of a strong foundational launch pad? Or does he sit it on a beach with water and waves and rocks and an unstable structure? Which one? Yeah, it's got to be a strong foundation. You need to get your business foundations right, and then your trajectory is straight up. If you don't have your business foundations right, you will go up, you will see efficiency, but you're gonna very quickly come right back down again, because you're gonna have to fix it all. And it also requires some brutal honesty and reflection and collaboration and transparency. So this is also something I see businesses do wrong, is they do AI in a silo. You need to talk to your business partners, you need to talk to your teams, you need to understand what are they doing, what's broken, what can we automate, what can we use in AI to make things better and actually get true efficiency, right? And that helps to define, again, what do we have control over and what actually needs us to pay attention to. And it's not just for AI. Okay, getting these foundations right is important for everything. So it's gonna also make you more competitive, because when you get those foundations right, you can actually move faster, you're more efficient, you're more agile. You're actually gonna get your ROI out of your software, right? So you not only buy it, but you can actually implement it successfully. It also sets you up for future success. So we had a few different mentions of quantum. Who thinks security is gonna get better when quantum is around if you don't have any security controls in place? That's a big nobody, right? So with the advent of AI, data and security is important. With quantum, it's even more important. So this is a problem that's not going away. It also lets you scale more quickly. And also, because I work in security frameworks and I help companies with this all the time, those companies that have a security framework like SOC 2 or NIST or ISO, you know, something that's relevant to their business, they use that to penetrate new markets all the time, right? So they get it to penetrate the US market, they get it to move into Europe, which diversification right now is pretty important for a lot of businesses, and security and data infrastructure help you to get there. And also, it helps you to sell your business down the road. Businesses that have clear processes, security, data, infrastructure are much more favorable when someone wants to buy your business down the road. So it's, even now, it's part of your exit strategy to get there. All right, so you define the things that you have control over, ideally moving from foundational to aspirational, right? And then that circle of control is going to expand over time. And this is exactly why you need a strategy, not a plan. Okay? When you're looking at this, you should be looking at what are the things I have control over right now? And then what are the things I don't really have control over right now, but I will soon or in the future? So, for example, we're putting new things in place to build capacity, right? Maybe you're hiring, maybe you're going to be creating an agent, and that's going to free up some time and people. Maybe you're putting in some learning programs to create additional competency, and again, that circle widens. Capital might improve, competition might improve, you might have access to new markets, right? So strategically think about, what am I going to do now? And then the things that I can't do now, guess what? Those go into your strategy for later on. So it's a very simple model, but it works really well because it cuts right through all of the noise. A lot of times we get strategy wrong because we think about aspirationally what would we like to be when we grow up and where we want our company to go. But we need to focus on what is realistic and actionable right now, and then also what we want to accomplish, what outcomes we want to see from our companies later. So once you have aligned strategically with all of those things, you have a better understanding of what your company can do, you want to act intentionally. I've spent a long time in my career doing project management, and I can tell you, you can see something fail very quickly without a good plan. So you want to act intentionally. I love quadrant planning, and this is one of the easiest, fastest ways to put a strategy together. Has anyone ever seen quadrant planning before? Yeah, it's used in agile project management a lot. It's also used in human-centered design, right? So you take some Post-its. We're physically here today, so I've got some Post-its here. And I would just place those Post-its into my quadrants. You can also do this digitally with things like Mural. You can do a whiteboard. You can use an Excel spreadsheet if you want to go old school. It doesn't really matter. But this is a team exercise, so you should have representation from across your company so the people can provide you with expert advice of what's really going on in the company. And then you want to take those things that you have control over, or those things that aspirationally you want to do, and then put them into quadrants. What can I do right now that's fast and easy? Right? So talk to your software developers, talk to your IT, your infrastructure, talk to your business operations, talk to your call center, anybody that you need to. What is fast and easy for us to do as soon as possible? Then the next one is you go fast but slow, right? Or sorry, fast but hard. Not fast but slow. Sometimes it feels that way. Fast but hard. So what can we do quickly but is a bit more complex for us to figure out? And then slow and easy and slow and hard. And guess what? That gives you a timeline. It gives you something you can do right away so you get quick wins, right? So if you have to report to anyone like your board, other stakeholders, shareholders, you can show that you're immediately getting traction and starting to make moves on your strategy, which is a big win. And for the other ones, you plot them out across the rest of the year. So again, it's really easy. You do your circle of control. You can put Post-its up there, put up a quadrant, and you just start moving them over, right? Which one's fast and hard? Which one's fast and easy? Okay, fast and easy, we're going to do these 4 between January and February. These ones I think we need from January to June, right? Instant project plan. And I like agile sprints, if you're familiar with agile sprints, but I don't like them for operations. They don't work. Honestly, I've seen it happen so many times. The agile methodology was written for software development. It was not written for operations. It was written for when you design your own software for yourself. But if you have any software in your infrastructure that is not yours, that you've purchased through a vendor, you have absolutely no control over their sprints. You have absolutely no control over what kinds of new features they're going to put up first. So don't rely on sprints inside of an organization where you are not writing your own code for your own software for your own company. They do not work. But this does. So use accountability sprints instead. So you should have a regular cadence. So again, you've got your quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, 1 should be kind of Q1, 2 should be Q2, 3, which is, you know, slow and all the way down to slow and hard, right? Go like that through the year, and then have accountability sprints instead. So this can be every month is what I would recommend, or something, but there's a regular cadence where you're looking at that iteration and seeing how's it going. And each one of those checkpoints, you take accountability for what's actually happening. So this is where you should measure progress. So there should be some data, like how are we doing, what milestones have we met, what kinds of things are happening. From an engagement perspective, and a lot of orgs get this wrong, you should party. Yes, I said it, party. It doesn't always mean cake. You don't have to have cake, it's okay. But you do need to recognize people, and you do need to celebrate your successes, or your people will get discouraged and they will stop working as hard, or might actually even leave the organization if it feels toxic. So take a moment to party and say, hey, we did these things well, this is great, let's move on. And then you also want to plan. So that's also where you take a breather and say, are we doing what we said we were going to do? Do we actually have control over that? Was it more complex than we thought it was? I have seen and been in companies where everyone reports green on the scorecard, and then they walk over to the water cooler and they say, we're never going to meet that milestone. Or we are $10,000 over budget, but don't tell anybody, because then we're going to be in yellow, and yellow means we get in trouble. Okay? Are we simpatico? Yeah. So you want to avoid that and create a culture of honesty and transparency, so you actually meet your milestones, you actually have real conversations, and you actually start to iterate effectively. Fast and easy, all the way to slow and hard. I like Kanban boards. Has anyone heard of a Kanban board? All right. The rest of you are in for a treat. This is the best thing since sliced bread. And I'm gluten-free, so it's really good. My daughter's celiac, TMI, but that's why. A Kanban board makes it super easy to visually track progress. So you can take all of your fast and easies, right, all the way to slow and hards, and put it into your to-do pile. Then you move them forward. So you say, we're going to work on these 5 things in this quarter, and you move them into the in-progress bucket. Here's the cool thing about Kanban. You are not allowed to move anything else over into the in-progress bucket until it has moved over another row. So until it's ready for quality check, and then definition of done. Whatever you've defined is done. It's safe, it's secure, it's working, and users are happy, for example. And what it does is a couple of things. It shows you visually where you are in the project. It's really easy. I have used this method with all kinds of stakeholders, but it's a visual representation of progress. And it also shows you where your key blockers are. If you need to have conversations with the board, with senior management, with your budgetary committee, whatever, it shows you if something's been sitting in progress for 6 months, that's the problem, right? You don't need to look through the data. That's the elephant in the room. This is a super easy way to do it. And it allows you to also have those honest conversations with your staff. It's harder to hide problems when that problem just sits in the in-progress bucket for months at a time. And we talked a lot about data and security today, because data is the backbone of AI. It's the bloodstream of AI. It can do nothing without good, clean data. And you want it to be secure, right? You don't want your organizational information out there. You don't want personal and private information out there. Data and security are the 2 key ways that you create and maintain trust with your customers. So you have to protect them like diamonds, or even more valuable. An easy way to do AI implementation, so for companies in the room that are a bit newer, it might be a lot easier because you have less data to work with. But for those of you who have, legacy data or legacy systems, you might be wondering, like, how? How am I going to move this massive amount of data? How am I going to protect it? I really recommend, again, using sprints. So get your foundational security base ready, and then move the most critical data over to the least critical. So again, this is strategy and outcome. The most critical is, first of all, things that you need to protect, of course. That's why you're going to put your foundational security base in first, so that everything's protected. But then when you organizationally want to hit an outcome, you look at your data and say, what's the most critical data that we need for this AI to actually work properly? You label it, right? Is it confidential? Is it public? Is it just company confidential? Then you migrate it into wherever you're going to have that AI using the data from. right? Because it needs clean data in a common repository, and you're going to secure it, right? So security is not just cybersecurity like anti-malware and things like that. This security is also access. Who should have access to that level of data? Not many people. The more data you add, the less access you should have. So label it, migrate it, secure it, right? And then move on to the next data set. And you can move from most critical and business process align along the way. Any questions, concerns before I move on to why change goes wrong? All right, I know you're on the seats, edge of the seats. Change goes wrong, and I'm just gonna do a quick poll. Who thinks change goes wrong because of people? Raise your hands. Okay, the rest of you you're in for a surprise. They're right. Change goes wrong because of people. Again, up to 80% of digital transformations, AI transformations, fail. So hundreds of thousands of dollars down the tubes because of people. And again, it's because of fear. That evil, devious lizard brain takes over, and people start to resist. They fear change. They actively resist change. So you need to do the same things with your people that we talked about today. Get yourself through your own personal fears, but then you also need to help your employees in your company to get through fear. And again, you want to do it by activating those two things that directly turn off the amygdala, that shut down fear in its tracks. You want to turn on logic, the logical side of their brain, and you do that by communicating, right? What, why, how, when. So this is what we're doing. Here's our project plan. This is when your part of the team or your part of the business is going to be impacted. This is exactly what we're doing. And that evokes understanding and helps people to logically think about it and understand the impact to themselves, their teammates, et cetera, and the company. But a lot of people forget to do this last one, which is emotion. So understanding is very, very different than action. I'll give you an example. I have revealed that I have children. There have been times, I know this is shocking, but I have said, it is -10 out. I believe very strongly you should wear mittens and a coat. And these are all the reasons why. Hypothermia, frostbite, right? But raise your hands, who thinks my child put their coat on? Anybody? You know my children. That is accurate. Left the house, even though they fully understood the consequences logically. So that's when you get into the emotional part. You have to help your employees to get excited about the change. So oftentimes in companies, I see that we communicate to employees and we market to customers. So our employees, we say, we're going to be launching this product on April the 5th at 10 p.m. Customers are going to see it the next morning at 9 a.m. CSRs across the organization have been informed. There's an FAQ, which is 10 pages. You can talk to your team leader about what's happening. Thank you very much for your support. Do you understand what's happening? Yeah? Are you excited? No. Right? And to my customers, I say, look at this fantastic product. It is so easy to use, simplistic, beautiful design. We spent time with researchers making sure that it is the best application on the market. It's going to save you time and energy, and you're going to want to use it for all these reasons. That evokes an emotional response. That is the core of marketing, is evoking an emotional response, a positive emotional response. You need to do the same thing with your people. Help them not to just understand why there's a benefit to the company, but help them to emotionally resonate with it. Help them to get buy-in, because that's what actually leads to action. All right, so those 3 steps, again, you want to accept, right? So radical acceptance, this is here, this is now, this is happening. You want to align strategically, first to the things that you have control over, right? Understand what those are from the different lenses. You want to also align from the most foundational things you need to get right out to aspirational. And then you need to put that into a plan. You just take those things and you go fast and easy all the way over to slow and hard. That's Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, right? Put in some standard checkpoints to make sure that everyone's following along and that they're being honest about what's really happening. And then, of course, adjust as needed. Because AI is unpredictable, but humans are much more unpredictable. So adjust along the way and make sure that you're keeping track of it. I actually do this keynote as a part of things that I do for a variety of my companies. I also run workshops if you're interested in them. I'm actually going to be posting some templates today on these different, how to do quadrant planning, the circle of control. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, connect with me, check out my website, and I'm here, and I would love to talk to you if you have any questions. But before I leave the stage, any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I'm going to ask a question. Anyone think they're going to try quadrant planning? Yeah, we got a couple. Fantastic. Free and easy. Often just a few Post-its and you're going to get a long way. Anyone need to secure their data? Yeah, you don't need to raise your hand. It's okay. But you can talk to me later if you do need to know how you can do that. But again, a lot of this is, I really wanted to end today by saying you got a lot of fantastic theory today, a lot of fantastic technical information, but the thing that I see a lot of companies struggling with is, well, that's great, but now what? What do I do with that information? How do I actually implement this? And how do I get my people to come along with me for the ride? So I genuinely hope that you got those things out of the session today, and thank you very much for your time.